Hello, everybody. It's Mr. Smith here with a slightly impromptu, unscripted video, so please forgive the nature of this. But recently, we've asked for consent for artificial intelligence to use AI in school, and I just thought I'd make a short video because we've had a few correspondents asking to know more about it or to understand the context. Rather than me writing lengthy letters, I think it's probably easier that I show rather than tell you what we're planning to do. So just a little bit of context. I am a self-confessed geek about these kinds of things. I love all things technology. I am aware that obviously with AI, there are some elements of it that seem a bit possibly sinister, and it's quite new for all of us. The first question we've had is, what happens to my child if we don't have consent? The consent is entirely up to you. If you don't give us consent, we won't use the tool. If you do give us the consent, we will. So please don't feel your child will be disadvantaged in any way. If you're uncomfortable with this, then please just don't give us consent. That's absolutely fine. Second thing that I just hopefully clear up, this is not to replace teachers' work, it's to complement it and enhance it. And I'll show you how we're planning to do that in a minute. We've been looking at this for a little while. I've already spoken at a national conference about this, and I think I'm scheduled to speak at another one that encourages head teachers to make use of the tools. No children will be using AI in any way, shape or form. We feel that they're too young and the technology is too soon, basically, to be doing anything like that. And I don't think we would have any plans in the future to do that. We're purely looking to use it as a tool to help us in our work speed up some tasks. So we wrote a policy last year, which you can see on screen. And we've only dated it for the year because I think by June next year, things will have changed rapidly because it's a rapidly changing area. But I want to reassure you, this is backed up by a full policy, which is on our website under the policies tab. You can see this document there. And this is based on a model policy that I managed to get from the Southwest Grid for Learning. They've been involved with e-safety for over 25 years, and they're a really good source of information. But I've also, if we scroll a bit further down here, this responsible use checklist is where we start. And staff have already had training in this. They were given training last summer term. And basically we must protect personal data. That's number one step. You can't just input anybody's personal data. That's got to be respected. So no staff are using it for that unless we've got consent about the work element. There's also the intellectual property right, which I've already mentioned in the letter. We need to verify the content. It's not enough to just use AI and then go, yes, fine, let's off you go with it. Teachers will not be using it to just mark a piece of work and then go, right, fine, I now don't have to do my job. More about that in a moment when I show you the tool that we are going to use, hopefully. And then we need to sort of amend it and make it yours. And we will be transparent, of course, in our use, hence the letter to you. So if I just move over to a Notebook LM, this is a Google-powered piece of software, and it's actually been designed for education. So it's really good. It does the usual stuff that a lot of AI models out there does. So if I click on a notebook I did here, we have a document every year on safeguarding called Keeping Children Safe in Education. It's quite a lengthy document. And when I click on that, it brings me into my notebook, and you'll see on the left-hand side, I've uploaded that document. If I click on it, it will actually upload the full document. It's not always easy to see in this model, but that is the full document. But you can see it goes on and on and on for pages. Now, staff would have to read that cover to cover every year. That is a requirement, but this was a test for me. And so I'm able to take that document and then start typing, could you tell me a bit more in this document about? Okay, and it will do that. So it does all the normal AI things. I can have a video overview of it. I can do an audio overview of it. I can create a mind map of the document. I can even create a quiz over here. I can create flashcards, not that you would with this document. So it does all kinds of regular AI things. But if I just go into my notebook and show you one of the models that we used last year, this is how we're planning on using it with children. So what I've done in this section is this document that says scan is a mark scheme for writing. So, sorry, it's not. It's a piece of children's work. So you can see on this piece of work, we've scanned it in. It's a child's piece of work. There's no identifying features. There's nothing that links it to our school. There's nothing that links it to that particular child. I'm not even going to say the child's name while on screen now. So we've put that in, but we've also then put the mark scheme in. Again, it's not always easy to see it like this, but if I scroll down a bit, you can see some of the things that the child will need to do in their writing to reach either the expected standard or the greater depth standard. So it says things like speech, semicolons, dashes, using colons and hyphens, spelling most words correctly from the 5-6 spelling list. If I scroll down a bit more, exercise an assured and conscious control over levels of formality. Now, before we did this test, this was a child that was in year 6 last year. And Mrs. Tingsaka and I met, and I asked her for her thoughts on this child. And I said, I've read the piece of work. I want you to read this piece of work and tell me where you would mark it. Tell me what you would give as next steps and whether they're at the expected standard or the good, a greater depth standard. So we both did that exercise independent of each other. And then we came back together and said, what do you think? And she said, I would put it at expected, but it's close to greater depth. And I said, I would agree. I think it's almost at that level, but not quite. What would you tell the child to do next? And we both hit upon the same things. There was a punctuation element. There was a spelling element. So what we did is we put it into this language model, and we were slightly blown back by what it came up with, because it was exactly what we had said. So if I click on the student feedback and development plan, I did a version that said, can you give us the 5 things that this child needs to do next? And you can see punctuation is there, spelling is there. These notes are basically references to the marks, the sections of the mark scheme. But we also did a longer version where we said, can we click on the right thing? There we go. Can you give us the longer version of it? And it spat out something that was really detailed for us. So here it says, working towards the expected standard. The child's writing clearly meets all the criteria, and then went through the document that I'd uploaded over here to tell me that. And then it told me why the child was working at the expected standard. The writing describes several key elements, and it goes on to do that. And then it tells me why it wasn't greater depth. Does not consistently meet the higher demands of this standard. While effective, assessing writing for a range of purposes needs to draw on different reading models, etc. And it carried on. So this script is basically what we came up with before we put it into the model. Now, what we're asking consent for is that we can occasionally use, particularly in pieces of writing, these kinds of models, not as a replacement for teachers' marking, but so that it gives them a head start in what they're doing, so that when they're coming to meetings, particularly moderation meetings that we have once a term on writing particularly, and when they come to pupil progress meetings twice a year, it gives them a head start, because they can then churn this out, and then they're able to, we still expect teachers to go through children's work and say, is this accurate? Does it agree with our viewpoints? So it gives them that head start that in turn cuts down time. The main thing that I'm wanting us to use AI for is not to replace teachers, not to cheat the system, not to get lazy or any of those things, but simply to make processes faster. So some of the other ways in which we're using it in school, and that I'm encouraging people to use it, that we don't need consent for. I'll give you an example. So we've all got free education Canva accounts. This is Canva, if you've ever come across that. And there's an AI section. And here I have copied a piece of text from Matilda by Roald Dahl. So it says, over the next few afternoons, Mrs. Phelps could hardly take her eyes from the small girl sitting for an hour after hour from the big armchair, etc. And what I basically said is, could you produce an image that visualizes this text? So in a reading lesson, and it's done several versions here, let's click on this middle one. We've got ourselves a nice image because it does talk about this. The book on our lap, it was necessary to rest it on her lap because it was so heavy for her to hold up. So it's really brought that piece of description to life, and it could be referred to in a lesson on reading. You might say to children, what would this passage look like? And they maybe discuss it and then say the next slide on the board, yeah, this is what I think it might look like. What do you think? So that could be used in reading. We're also using Gamma. Gamma I'm using in assemblies. It's fantastic. But again, I edit it. I don't just accept what it's doing. So my normal timescales for assemblies, it normally takes me an hour, sometimes as long as 2 hours to write an assembly each week. AI sped this process up no end because I can put in a prompt, and I would say the one thing teachers have been taught about is if you write rubbish in, you get rubbish out. You need to be specific about what you want the AI model to do. So this here says, create a UK primary school assembly on forgiveness, including information on how forgiveness is a choice and that sometimes it can be hard to forgive. Finish the presentation with a list of 6 tips that will help children learn the process of forgiveness, including a reflection that can be read together. And so it's given me an outline of 10 PowerPoint slides. If I click generate with that, normally I would edit at this stage and say, no, I wanted something else different. But if I click edit, it will then start to produce 10 slides for an assembly. And again, this is my start point. This is not a finished product because it may be either inaccurate or it may not be giving me something that I want. And I could always go back to that prompt. I can change the styling of this. It doesn't have to be this very burgundy version of the content, but you can see it's still writing the script. If I scroll back up, it's probably finished the first few slides. And so I can now start to check through, is this what I wanted? And I can read that. Is that what I wanted? I can use the AI model here. It says edit with AI. And I can say, actually, I want you to improve the writing or make this section longer or shorter. Or I can give it a specific instruction and say, actually, this is not what I wanted. Or can you change this image to something brighter? Or simplify the language. I can do all sorts with that. And I can also edit it directly myself. So that's another way in which we're using things to just speed things up, giving all the staff really more time to get on with all the other tasks we're doing. And there's no doubt we're in an era in education at the minute where schools are being asked to do more and more and more, especially over the last 10 years. One parent did write about a bit concerned about kind of AI being used to replace teachers, which I can understand the essence of that. But I think we're trying to use this to complement the tasks that we're doing, not replace tasks, and certainly not just churn things out and not check it. So I hope that's been a helpful couple of minutes on what we're trying to achieve. You do not have to give consent. But the large part of what we would be using it for is this notebook LM built for education and samples of children's writing mainly. What we could do is put in sort of lots of versions of the writing and say we've got 7 pieces in there. Where would it be on the mark scheme? And again, really fast head start on that. Doesn't mean to say AI is always accurate. It can hallucinate. It can get things wrong. So we would never just accept those judgments. Okay, thank you. Hopefully that helps. If not, and you've got more questions, do give us a call or pop in, or I'll see you in the playground or write in. Okay, thank you, everyone. Bye.